So good morning. Thank you for having me. And this follows on really nicely, I think, from Tim's input. So thank you very much for that, because I'm going to be, as part of this session, inviting you to take a wee look at your own values to see how well we know each other. And we'll come on to that within the Remembering X session. So first, what, who, and why am I? So when I was sent the form to complete, and it asks, who are you? Tell us about yourself. I had to separate that. Well, who am I? What am I? And why am I here from Disabilities Snowsport UK for you today? First of all, what am I? Well, yeah, I'm Chief Exec of the world's leading disabled and adaptive snow sports charity. We've been established for over 40 years. Until last October, we managed the British Paralympic team. But what does that have to do with me and with us? What else am I? I'm a friend, I'm a son, I'm a twin, I'm a brother. They're all labels that will become important to us as we go through our lives, but they're applied to us externally, depending on what situation we're in at the time. And there's a risk that we start to become those labels and live as those people. So we need to remember, well, if I'm that to those people, who am I? If those people go away, I'm just getting a divorce, 38, good job. If my husband has now gone away, I'm no longer a husband, what does that mean for me? Who am I? That label doesn't exist anymore. If I lose a job and I'm not a professional anymore, if I choose to retire, who am I? So you need to return to that center, and that's where X is coming in. So who am I? I'm passionate, I'm authentic. My mum says I'm opinionated. I agree. I cry more when I'm happy than I do when I'm sad. Not a lot of people see me crying at films, but Disney sets me off all the time. That is who I am inside, and that will always remain no matter which role I'm playing to the other people that I share my life with. So why am I here? Well, I started off studying law, partly because I grew up watching Ally McBeal and there was a cocktail bar and dancing babies, and I thought it looked like a good life to live. That wasn't the reality of practicing law, so I changed. I took some time out. I went to live in Ibiza for a while. Whilst I was living in Ibiza, I worked as a rep. I was one of those annoying people selling you stuff that you could buy a lot cheaper locally. But out there, I started to become really interested in human behavior, and particularly around risk and choices that people were making. And as a rep at that time, there was a company called My Travel. It owned Escapades and Direct Holidays and Air Tours and Panorama. And I'd have to change uniform pretty much depending how much people had paid for their holidays. They got the same level of service, they got me. But different people had different experiences depending what financial ability they had to pay for a holiday or what they were willing to pay for a holiday. And a lot of people who had paid less for their holiday were making more risky choices. So I decided to come back and study that. It wasn't from a pious kind of judgmental place. I was genuinely interested in this concept of behavior and risk. So I then, because of my Ibiza experiences, I specialized in sexual health and substance misuse. And I started to work in a young people's health clinic. Directly on a one-to-one, people are great. They have questions, they have experiences, but they didn't have a lot of places to go with those questions or to ask them and talk about those experiences. So I started to work in systems change and policy. And when I was doing that, I was talking about disabled people's sensuality, sexuality. I noticed that a lot of accessible toilets had no condom provision or no sanitary provision. And there's a real strong but subtle message about why we have sex or why I'm getting somewhere with this tangent. And it kind of ruled out this sensuality and right to risk from a lot of people once they became disabled or were born disabled. So I got really opinionated about that. And started to work specializing in disabled people's right to risk, to joy, to pleasure, to thrill. And that led me eventually to this role at Disability Snowsport UK, who've kindly given me the time to come and share some of this experience with you today. So who is X? So I touched on this briefly there. We live our lives surrounded by people, surrounded by experiences who demand different things from us. Sometimes we own the labels as patient, parents, partners, pals, professionals. But if you think about this concept as a windmill, it's really important that the center of the windmill is the strongest part. Because as a windmill, as the sails react to the external forces, we can keep spinning. We can do this for a long time if we're strong, but if we feel weak within ourselves, or if we're placing too much of our identity, of ourselves, on these different sails, the whole thing gets out of kilter, we start to wobble, and it can all fall apart. So that's where I'm talking about X today. It's the middle of the windmill. It's that strong cross-section in the middle. And I think one way that we can remember X, that we can remember who we are outside of those labels, is by getting in touch with our values, by recognizing what triggers us, what we hold dear to us, and what's really important. And I'm a big fan of Brené Brown. I was before she was on Netflix. That was kind of before the trend. If you have Netflix, if you can watch Brené Brown's stuff on TED Talks or YouTube, have a look. She's a professor, researcher, specializing in sociology, talks a lot about some of the stuff that we'll probably be exploring today. And Brené defines a value as a way of being or believing that you hold most important. So I'm going to keep these up. I'll bring them back in a minute. I don't know how visible they are. They're so small, but these are some possible values, just to give you an idea of what to think about when you're considering your own. And I'm going to jump down and clip myself and hand out some paper if you need some. But I'd like you to think about this values lantern. And we're going to talk, first of all, about the flame for you. Just spend 1 or 2 minutes reflecting on your own, or if you're here with a friend and want to talk about the values that really light the way for you. Does that make sense? So what do you hold dear? What's your belief or your way of living that really keeps you strong? And here's some things that might trigger you. There's things on there around fairness, justice, compassion, giving back, humor, integrity, joy, fun, nature, parenting, vulnerability, wealth, wholeheartedness. There will be more than one of these that you will value, that you'll hold dear, but 1 or 2 will stand out from the rest. There will be, in Brené's example of a lantern, we're going to pick that lantern to pieces and talk about each one. It's the guiding light that when our resilience is low, when we feel that everything's getting a bit too much, or if we're going into a challenging conversation where this is going to be hard, I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings, but actually I'm doing this for the right reasons, these are in line with my values, I can take that lantern into what Brené calls the arena, and I'm ready for that conversation, or I'm ready for the battle that might be ahead, because I truly believe what I'm about to do. And all lanterns have something that protects the flame, and that's what we're coming on to. We can start to identify specific behaviors that help us to protect that value. So if it's people, it's making sure you have the opportunity to connect with people, because if you find yourself isolated or feeling lonely even in a room with lots of people, your flame will start to diminish. You'll start to get squashed and you'll be misaligned. And that can lead to a number of different kind of representations. So now I'd like you to have a think about who around you, or what behaviors can you or do you have in place that protects that flame, that nurtures those values. So it sounds like we've had a think about how we protect our flame. So let's look at the handle. And this is where we come to alignment. It's really, I like to think of them as red flags. These are our warning signs. How do we know when we're in a situation or we're heading towards a path where we're going to put down our values lantern and walk away from it? Because we're carrying enough already. Sometimes when life's giving us all of these challenges or opportunities to overcome them, it can feel a bit much, and we're carrying enough. So we risk putting down this lantern, putting down our flame and walking away from it. But usually there are triggers that you can notice that give you that warning sign. So for me, anger is one. So I have a strong value of what I believe to be fair and just. And if something seems unfair to me, I get angry. But then I have to check, okay, I'm angry about that because this isn't right for me. So I'm grateful for the anger for reminding me of my values. Does that make sense? Okay. So what are your triggers? How do you know when you're at risk of putting down your values and walking away from them? Because without that light, times get really dark. So it's useful to know what your triggers are, what are your red flags. So just spend a minute or two thinking about that. So we've got a couple of minutes left, and I'm really keen to finish on a positive. So we're going to look at, as this lantern then, how do we radiate our light? When does it shine brightest? So have a think about the last time that you really embodied or truly lived your values. Great, that's beautiful. And how does it feel? Or how did it feel? If you can remember, how did it feel the last time you truly... I mean, I love my job. I'm so lucky to have found this path where I can feel that I'm making a difference because of it aligns with my values, and I believe that every day when I'm turning up to work, I'm making a difference in what I do, and that's a really powerful purpose that I feel within me. So I feel that too. So how do you feel truly aligned to your values? If you don't currently, try and think, when did you? How did it feel? And I'm going to leave you with a bit of homework because we're running tight to catch up on time this morning. If you can't remember the last time that you really felt in line with your values, that you were living your X, being your true self, not you as a parent responding to the needs of your children, not you as a partner rushing around responding to the needs of your partner, you as X, you in the middle. Think about when the last time that was. If you can't remember it, take time to imagine it. Write these down. This is your homework. You want to get yourself into a nice space. If you pray, pray. If you meditate, meditate. Bring yourself to however you bring yourself into a peaceful state of mind. Take time to imagine your true self, happy and fulfilled, and then we're going to create your future. So CR, that's your current reality. Where are you now? EA, think about alternatives that might exist. If you're not truly aligned where you are now, are there some small changes that you could make that would shift you towards that alignment? And then decide where to target your energy. See, we spelled out create, it's clever. So TE, target your energy. Think about something you're going to do every day that's going to shift you back into alignment. And every morning when you wake up, remember that intention, live that intention, and make a deliberate choice to move back to X. And it's not to say you can't be X as a parent or as a professional or as a pal, but it's much easier to do that and to do it well from that place of alignment. Thank you.